This is for task 1.3, task 1, and it says that the elevations of 4 fish in a lake are shown. The elevations of the top of a lifeguard stand is 6 feet. So we can see, right, the top here is 6 feet, and we've got these different fish at these distances. So we're going to start and put the elevations of graphed integers on the number line. So we have all of these fish that we are going to put on this number line and the top of the lifeguard station. So from top to bottom, putting these on a number line. Let me grab a pen. It's going to start with 6 feet. So this is above. So this is a positive number. It's above the sea level. So positive here. So here's the lifeguard stand. So integers are just whole numbers. Positive and negative. These are all whole numbers, no fractions, no decimals. This is an integer, so -1. So go ahead and get this fish, and this fish on your number line. So pause and do that. So now it wants to know what is the distance from 0 to each elevation on the number line. So how many units is it taking to get to 0, to sea level? So if I go back to 0, it's taking me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units to get from 6 to 0. If I'm at -1, it's going to take me 1 unit, so 1 distance to 0 to get here. So distance is always a positive number. So even, right, if I have to go to 0, it's saying it's just 1 unit. So even though it's negative below sea level, it's still going to be a positive answer. Distance is always positive. So what we call that is the absolute value. What is the distance to 0? What is its value of the number? And we mark that by showing this. So if I said this means absolute value, so right, what is the distance from here to here is kind of how I think of it. It takes 1 unit to get there. So the absolute value of -1 is 1 unit. So see if you can finish these ones. So it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. It's just talking distance, and we record our answers for distance as positive numbers. So go ahead and answer those. The absolute value of a number is written using these symbols like we just talked about. I always think like the distance from here to here. So -8, the absolute value of -8 is written as the absolute value of -8. So same thing. This is just written out in words. This is written out as math symbols. It's still 1 unit. The absolute value of -1 is 1. So let's talk about this 6 for a second. So it's positive already. And even though I had to go backwards to 0, it's still 6 units. It doesn't matter if I drive my car forward or in reverse. I'm still having to travel that distance, and it counts as a positive movement. So, and our last one says, so fill those out, and then our last one says negative numbers are less than positive numbers, right? If I look at this number line, these are smaller, these are bigger. Does this mean that the absolute value of a negative number must be less than the absolute value of a positive number? So let's give ourselves some examples here. So if I have -1 and 6, we can agree that -6 is bigger. -1 is less than -6. Up here, right, -1 is on the smaller side. It's lower than 6. But if we're looking at the absolute values, let's take a look at those. So the absolute value of -1 is 1. The absolute value of 6 is 6. Well, in this case, 6 is still bigger. So let's try out a different set of numbers. Let's pick -10 and 5. Well, 5 is bigger than -10, right? 5 We go up about here, and negative 10's down here. So this is higher up on the number line, so it's bigger. Negative 10 is less than 5, that inequality. Let's look at their absolute values now. So the absolute value of negative 10 and the absolute value of 5. So their distance to 0. So to get from negative 10 to 10, it takes us 10 units. To get from 5 to 0, sorry, I think I said negative 10 to 10. Negative 10 to 0 is 10 units. 5 to 0 is 5 units. And they're both positive because we're just talking distance. Absolute value means the distance. And now that is bigger. So if you're just comparing the positive and negative, yes, negative is less. But if you're looking at the absolute value, does that negative matter? So when we've turned it into absolute value, was negative 10, the absolute value of negative 10, still bigger than the absolute value of 5? So see if you can answer that there and get that problem done.